because they were inflexible. That is what flips Bitcoin.
Last year at Rare Evo, you said,
and that is why Cardano, I feel, is probably going to become the biggest cryptocurrency in the world.
You believe Cardano will become the biggest cryptocurrency in the world. That inevitably means it'll flip Bitcoin. When do you see that happening?
If we can do what I'm saying, there's no way to beat Cardano because there's nothing that can compete with it, because at the end of the day, it has lived up to what Satoshi started. At the end of the day, what are we trying to do? We're trying to change the economic, political, and social systems of the world for everyone, everywhere. Billions of people. So if you build a growth engine that doesn't lose its people and it's always adding people, and you build a growth engine where you can absorb all the technology of your competitors, at some point you just outgrow, and then you wake up and it's a multi-trillion-dollar ecosystem with trillions of dollars of value moving around every single day. That's just a fact. It's a competitive reality and fact. And it's not done by any one individual's actions and behaviors. It's done by the collective whole's self-interest, just like a normal economy does. It's almost like GDP. Okay, so some people are in Argentina right now, and they're fighting like hell to get the Argentine government to adopt something. Some people are in Ghana right now, fighting like hell to get the Ghanaian government to do things. There's some people in Vietnam getting Vietnamese game developers to do something. There's people wanting to be partner chains. And once midnight is out, and if it's successful, there'll be hundreds of partner chains coming, and people are building and launching. There are over 300 dApps that are at live and doing interesting things in Cardano. And every one of them has a team and a CEO and all kinds of people, and they're fighting like hell to get their stuff growing. The key is to enable and empower these people in the right way, that they have the resources and inspiration and tooling necessary to get to the next level. Then if you've designed it right, they come together as a community and they do the next step and then the next step. That is what flips Bitcoin, because Bitcoin stalled. The only value proposition it has is it's big and successful. That's it. It's not some new technology. It's not some new capability. It's not the fact that it's super easy to use it to go and do something interesting. It's big and successful. That's what Yahoo's value proposition was. That's what Microsoft Windows value proposition was. That's what Windows Phone's value proposition was. That's what MySpace's value proposition was. And, so network effects don't mean anything in technology, in economic, political, and social systems. It means absolutely nothing. If you don't believe me, go ahead and pull out your BlackBerry, open up Internet Explorer, go to, reset your MySpace account. So log into your Yahoo email, or AOL email, and then reset your MySpace account and go ahead and blog about it, and create a little note there. Okay. So obviously none of these things are significant, but when I was growing up, they were the market standard and viewed as completely unassailable, and nobody could touch them. And they've been completely usurped by new things. And we think Google is unassailable. Look at the growth of Perplexity. Google is almost unusable now as a product, and all these AI search engines are a huge threat to them. And within just a few years, they could displace it if Google's not careful. I was at Eric Schmidt's house in 2022 at the Milken Institute, and he was rambling on and on about how large language models are like the next big thing. And he was absolutely right. He knew the future, yet he was completely convinced that Google was the one to win. He's like, we invented the transformer. We have all the talent. We have all the data. We have all the compute power. Look at the Google Tensor, all this type of stuff. We're going to be OpenAI. We're just going to be the guys. And what happened? They got outcompeted by startups and these types of things. So network effects change all the time. And the people that you'd expect to win, whether they be Ethereum or Bitcoin, here today, gone tomorrow. Solana was dead. Now, a huge amount of growth. Okay. Could be dead in 12 months, could grow another 5x, 10x. Those are flashes in the pan unless you have the right fundamentals, though, because you have to look at a snapshot of 10 years. The only one that stayed relevant is Bitcoin. And there's a very particular reason for that, because it's a very simple model, but like gold, it can't grow above a certain floor. Digital gold only has a certain utility and purpose. And after, 500 million billion people own it, maybe you'll have a $250,000 Bitcoin or $500,000 Bitcoin, and that's it. And it'll kind of reach that cap there, and it's well distributed. Whereas high utility things that are smart contract systems, well, what's the value of being the voting system of every country on the planet? What's the value of being the payment system of the entire world? What's the value of being the credit system or the identity system for every country on the planet? It's incalculably higher than Bitcoin in that respect of being the value of gold. So what makes you that? The only way is embracing decentralization, first principles thinking, preserving the integrity of your system, and creating the right incentives for millions of people who don't know each other to come and use that technology in the right way, and also the ability to absorb new ideas. Why did BlackBerry fail or Yahoo fail or MySpace fail or all these other things? Because they were inflexible to a changing competitive reality and they didn't understand that their business model was no longer valid and they were on momentum. They weren't actually driving anymore. And so Ethereum suffered from this. They got stuck in a mire and now they have all these competitors eating away at them and slowly eating them out from the inside out, with layer twos grinding them down, which by the way can become layer ones at any time, especially with partner chains. And they don't have to be pro Ethereum. That network effect can move very quickly. Yet they're thinking they're like Bitcoin and they have this dominating thing. Yeah, they don't have that same cult. So they could get MySpace very quickly. So yeah, I do believe we could do this if we get the right things. This is why we're so focused on the fundamentals, like the first principles thinking, the Edinburgh Decentralization Index, the measure decentralization, the on-chain governance, these types of things, because you can't stop that once it's going fast enough, and it fixes its own problems. And if there's a mistake in your strategy, you're able to identify that faster than anybody else and absorb that. And if there's a brilliant idea, you're able to take that brilliant idea and bring it into your orbit, pivot, and make that a significant idea. No matter who you are, how brilliant you are, as a centralized business, you can't do that 24/7. The only ecosystems that can do that are ecosystems that elevate horizontally the users up to a point where each and every one of them has a say in visibility. Those are the systems that don't miss. They can't miss because you only need one smart cow to open the fence and then the whole herd gets out. So you just need one user to have a bright idea and it goes parabolic and everybody's like, yep, that's the model. Let's go do that. And then do you have a culture that allows you to pivot fast enough to go and chase that and get it done? That's what Cardano is building. That's the core USP of it. You asked me the opening question, why Cardano? Well, that's what it is. That's what we seek to do. And I have no idea, how that's going to translate to coin market cap or when that's going to translate. But directionally, it's right. It's like Don Valentine when he was talking about Sequoia, and they say, "How were you so successful?" He said, "I knew the future." He knew that these whole transistors and computer chip things were going to change everything. But if you asked him, like, okay, well, when exactly is the personal computer and who is it going to bring the personal computer? Don couldn't have foretold Steve Jobs and IBM and all this other stuff in the 1960s and 70s. It was impossible. But he knew directionally, this is the technology to bet on. This is the approach to bet on, because how the hell is the vacuum tube going to compete with that? You got one thing that's static and it can't get any smaller or more energy efficient. You got the other thing doing this every 18 months. And the speed keeps going up every 18 months. You do the graph, you do the math. At some point, it's taking over the entire world. Gordon Morris said the exact same thing. So that's the thing about crypto. Are you losing your community? Are you getting more centralized or more decentralized? Can you absorb your competitors' technology? Do you have first principles thinking? And do you have the right governance system where you don't fracture apart? I'll close with this. When I was the CEO of Ethereum many years ago, before the earth cooled and was pushed out, as many authors like to remind people, the cryptocurrency project that scared me more than anything else was not Bitcoin or Litecoin or any of these. There wasn't a lot back then, but there were a few, was NXT. And the reason being is that I witnessed in just 3 months' time this thing come out of nowhere, built on Java with this incredibly engaged community, and they were adding features like crazy. They had user-driven assets. They had a DEX. They were going to add smart contracts through something called automated transactions. They were written in Java. They were already proof of stake. And I was like, well, the proof of stake doesn't work. They said, it doesn't fucking matter. We'll fix it. This community was running, and it was going so fast. What killed them was two things. One, their token distribution wasn't so good, but, you can fix that. But the other thing, and this is the more pertinent thing, is they didn't have a good governance system, so they fractured. And they broke into things like Crypty and Lisk and eventually Scorix, which is Alex Cherpenoy's project, which became Ergo. Wave was another. They fractured in all these pieces, and they couldn't get it all together. Had they had the right governance system, Ethereum wouldn't exist. NXT would be number one, because they would have just grown and grown and grown like a weed, and they would have absorbed everybody. And it was a sexy project because it was new and interesting. It was first principles code base. It had Java. And I was like, who cares if it worked? they will find a way. This is what Brendan Nick likes to call the wrong way is the right way. When he creates JavaScript in 53 days, they had the right growth model behind it and it became a thing. So when I looked at it, I said, look, Ethereum's going to take 24 months, and this was in 2014, to get to a point where it's hardened enough to do smart contracts. If NXT has smart contracts before us because they already have the community infrastructure, they're going to own the entire smart contract space and they'll leapfrog everybody. And so governance matters that much. It is really the core differentiator between whether a project is successful or a project will fail. And in the long term, you can never get around the fact that poor governance will kill a project. Microsoft is another great example. In 1998, Bill Gates went to his research division, which at the time largest in the world for technology, and he said, tell me the future, the next 10 years. I want to know it. And here's what they told him. Bill, search, mobile computing, and social media. That's going to be it. And they wrote down the business model of Google, Facebook, and the iPhone. So a $600 billion company with a hyper monopoly that owned all technology basically had on their desk a blueprint for the entire future. And they lost it. They watched Google rise. They watched Facebook rise. They watched, the iPhone come out of nothing. Why? Because their governance sucked. Their culture sucked. And Satya Nadella wrote about it and hit refresh when he became CEO. He said, the only thing I really did was change the culture, and Microsoft did the rest, because we had all the brains and all the market stuff. And they went from like a $300 billion company, $3 trillion company under Satya Nadella. And he changed culture. He said, the CEO, the C in there is culture. So that is the key. And so you want to talk about competitive differentiators and all these other things and go beyond it. You have to do that. That's really the core of who we are, what we do. And, and that's what we fight for in the Cardano ecosystem.
The full interview with Cardano founder drops very soon, so click subscribe and have bell notifications turned on. And my brother and I, as well as Charles, will be speaking at Rare Evo this year. You'll be speaking at Rare Evo, keynote speaker. We will be there this year speaking as well. Use code altcoin daily for 5% off. Everybody down in the audience, I want to pack the house with the altcoin daily community. Grab your tickets with the link down below. And like always, see you tomorrow.